How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Baking World Tour, where we try and make something from every country in the world. And in this episode, we go to Cambodian fish burger. Soft and fluffy buns are popular all over Asia. And the fish patties, they're just a common street food. They're super tasty and fragrant. And I decided to combine those two to make a burger. And it's an absolute beast, so let's see what we need. For the buns, we'll need some flour, a bit of oil, salt, yeast, sugar, and some water. For the fish cakes, we'll need to make a flavouring paste. It contains shallots, galangal, turmeric, lemongrass, lime leaves, garlic, coriander stalks, a bit of pepper and a bit of salt. So unlike Thai fish cakes, which are spicy, Cambodian fish cakes are more herbaceous and fragrant. And of course we'll need some fish. I'm using cod. And we'll add some chopped green beans and spring onions for texture. Right, there's a few more things we need. To build the burger, we've got some hot sauce and some mayonnaise. For the salad, I've got some mint leaves, radish, shredded cucumber, shredded carrots, some more lime leaf, spring onions, coriander, and a dressing which is made of lime juice, oil, fish sauce, and soy sauce. And what's a burger without a few slices of tomato? So we'll stick that in there as well. And lastly, we'll need some oil for frying the fish cakes in. There's quite a few ingredients, but trust me, it's worth getting them. As for the equipment, we don't need much. A tray with some non-stick paper, a pot, a bowl, scales, dough scraper, temperature probe, a brush, and I use the pestle and mortar to make the paste and make the fish cakes in. But a food processor would make an easy job of this. So with all that out of the way, let's start making the dough. And it's made with a preferment called a sponge, a quick preferment. And to make it rise quickly, we're using room temperature water. This kind of sponge, more often than not, will contain all the liquid and all the yeast in the recipe, only part of the flour, which is a quarter of the total flour in this case. Make sure to mix it well so there's no lumps and no dry flour left. Now we can cover it up and leave it to ferment for around 45 to 60 minutes. This pre-ferment will make our buns fluffy and give them an extra nice flavour, and also help them stay soft for longer. Once it's done, it should be nice and foamy. So because this pre-ferment makes up a large portion of the total dough, we need to take some measures to control the temperature, because this is at room temperature at the moment. So you need to chill down your flour. I actually stuck this in the freezer. It's at 3 degrees Celsius. It's exactly what we need. If it's colder, it's fine, but you don't want it to be any warmer. Now we can make the final dough. In a large bowl, add the pre-ferment, the salt, the sugar, the oil, and give it all a good mix. You want to mix until all the sugar and salt has been dissolved, and only then add the flour. If your kitchen is really warm, you may want to refrigerate your bowl before making the dough. That's another way of keeping things cool and controlled. Now once you have added the flour, grab your scraper and mix it to a dough. Now tip it out on the table and knead it. It will be slightly sticky, but work quickly and with a light touch. This is a small piece of dough, so it will only take around 4 minutes of total kneading time. If it starts sticking too much, simply scrape it up and continue. And scrape it off your hands too. If you're going to double the recipe, of course the kneading will take longer, around 6 to 7 minutes. But once you're finished, the dough should be nice and smooth. It may still be a little bit sticky, but that's fine. Now we can pop it in a bowl and take its temperature. Around 25 to 26 degrees Celsius just about right for this. If I had not chilled down the flour, it would be more like 27, 28 degrees. And that would make the dough ferment too quickly. That would be way too warm. Even at this temperature, because we're using pre-ferment, the dough will ferment quite rapidly. So after the first 30 minutes, we can already give it a fold. Dust your dough with flour, release it from the bowl using your scraper, tip it out on the table smooth side down. Then simply fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until reach the point where you started. Then flip it smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, that's your fold done. This step will help equalize the temperature in the dough. It'll also tighten it, giving it more strength. It'll help the buns keep their shape. Instead of spreading out, they will rise upwards. Now we can stick this back into the bowl, cover it up and leave it to ferment for another 30 minutes. After the second proof, take the dough out, weigh it and divide it. Now the buns I made were quite large, because I only made 2. And the burgers ended up being absolutely humongous, impractical, messy, but of course delicious. So if you want to be more civilized, then I would suggest you divide the dough into 4 at this point. We're making 4 fish patties anyway, so you can get 4 burgers out of this. But regardless of how many you do, after dividing we need to pre-shape. And do this very lightly. Flatten the dough out, fold the edge over the middle, going around a circle to the reach point where you started. As you can see, it's nice and loose. Because this dough is fermenting quite rapidly, we can't afford to let it rest for a long time. That's why light pre-shaping is required this time. So dust your dough balls with flour, cover them up, and leave them to rest for around 15 minutes. And because the pre-shaping was light, they'll be nice and stretchy. Now give your table a light dusting of flour. Take a dough ball, place it smooth side down on the table, flatten it out, and repeat the same move we did earlier. Fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle to reach point where you started. This time make them nice and tight. Get any excess flour out of the way and tighten the dough ball against the table. You want the dough to stick to the table slightly when you're doing this. If there's too much flour, it'll just slide around, it's not going to get tight. Lastly, pick the dough ball up and pinch the seam together at the bottom, so nothing comes undone. And repeat with the other one. If you feel the dough sticking to your hands, simply rub your hands against the table to pick up some flour, and that'll fix the stickiness instantly. At this point we can start preheating the oven. 210 degrees Celsius, fan off. And that's 410 Fahrenheit for my American friends. Make sure your dough balls got plenty of space between them. Rub them with some flour. Loosely cover them with some cling film. And we can leave them for the final proof. It should take around 45 minutes. If your kitchen is cooler, it may take a little bit longer, but they should almost double in size. Now this step is optional, but I decided to brush them with some oil before baking. You could also brush them with an egg glaze or with some water, or you could brush them with milk. Now they don't necessarily need to be scored, but I did it anyway, because they have risen quite a lot already. They will not explode in the oven, so scoring here is mostly for looks. And this method with scissors works really well for many breads. You can also use a sharp knife or a razor. Right, let's get these babies in the oven. They'll take around 20 minutes. And to get the crust nice and even, you can turn the tray around halfway through the bake. They kind of look like mini bread loaves and not burger buns. I think that's pretty cool. After baking, you can leave them as they are. I decided to brush some more oil on top. This will make the crust really shiny and moist and soft. But for a more low-fat version, just leave it off. But that's how I make the buns, with a sponge. Pretty simple, right? And the taste and texture of these is awesome. So let's have a closer look. Beautifully golden brown all over, with a nice mini loaf shape and super soft. But I'm not finished yet. There's some Cambodian fish cakes to make. To not ruin my table, I'm using a tea towel to prevent the pestle and mortar from scratching it up. We need to do this in right order to make it easier for us. If you have a food processor, of course you don't have to worry about this. I added the galangal, turmeric, lemongrass and lime leaves first, with the salt and pepper. Those four are the toughest ingredients, and we really need to mash them up. It will take a good 5 minutes, and this is how it should look. Now we can add the garlic, the coriander and the shallots, and keep bashing it up. Keep doing this for around 5 more minutes. It doesn't have to be completely smooth, you just want to get rid of all the large bits. If you can't be bothered making your paste, just buy one. Fish cakes like these can be made with various curry pastes. Of course then they may not be Cambodian, but still they'll be tasty. Right, let's continue on by bashing up the fish. An important note here is to have your fish nice and dry. When I took it out of the packaging, I squeezed all the water out, and once I cut it, I left it to sit for a while. And before mashing it up here, I squeezed it once again. The wetter it is, the looser your patties will be. Okay, the fish took another 5 minutes or so. Now add the green beans and the spring onions to the pestle and mortar, and bash them up as well. These don't have to be very fine, a minute or so will do. And now add the flavouring paste we made earlier, and mix everything together. Because my bowl is quite small, I have to do this in batches. If you have a large pestle and mortar or a food processor, you may be able to do everything at once. So I combined all the ingredients together, and I placed half of the mix back into the pestle and mortar, bashed it up once again. Then I took it out and I did the other half. I know it seems like a load of back and forth, but it doesn't take too much time really. To prevent the fish cakes from disintegrating, add some cornstarch. If your mix still feels really loose after this, you can add a little bit more, but don't use too much. The patty should be nice and loose and not gummy. Okay, now weigh the mix and divide it into 4 equal pieces, or however many pieces you want to make. Dividing them into 4 gives a good size to the patty, and you don't want to make them any larger than this. They'll become difficult to handle and fry. Now grab a piece of fish cake mix, shape it into a ball, and then flatten it out using the palms of your hands. Be nice and gentle, go back and forth. And that's how you make Cambodian fish patty. Pretty simple, right? Now leave these on the side. Let's continue with the buns. Like for any good burger, you want to toast your buns. This will give them a nice texture inside and will prevent them from getting soggy from the fillings. So slice them in half, and you can brush them with some oil or with some butter. But if you want to go the low fat way, well, don't brush them with anything. And you can toast them in your oven under the broiler. But a super hot pan will do the job nicely. So place your buns into a dry preheated pan and press them in. Swap them around, give them a couple turns, and no more than 1 minute later they should be done. And that's how they should look. Beautifully golden brown and crispy. The perfect burger carrier. Now let's get these out of the way and get on with the salad. Combine all the vegetables in a large bowl. Mix them up by hand so all the ingredients are distributed evenly. I always like to mix my salad dry before adding the dressing. This way you won't have to agitate it too much once you add the dressing. So pour it in, give it a quick mix, and that's your salad done. This is such a simple and beautifully fragrant salad. It goes perfectly in this burger. So there's just one more thing we need to do. Is fry the fish patties. And I left them for last so they are nice and fresh when we go build the burger. Your oil should be no more than 160 degrees Celsius, which is 320 degrees Fahrenheit. And the fish patties, they'll take around 3.5 to 4 minutes. And there you have it. We've got all ingredients ready. We can build this bad boy. I know this was a bit of a massive project this time. I think it only seems like that because of all the ingredients. If you are organized and you break it down in parts and follow my instructions, it's super simple really. And you'll end up with this kind of deliciousness. But let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you have any questions or suggestions, also let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.